Hey everyone, welcome to the Volleyball Data Lab. I'm your host, Tyler Widdison, and I've got our studio fired up, ready to dive into some serious data learning. As the former performance analyst for USA Beach Volleyball, I know firsthand the importance of being able to handle loads of data. In this series, we will break down the use of R so it becomes easier to use. So get ready to spike your data skills. Let's get started. All right. Hey y'all, welcome to the next video. Today we're going to be talking about filtering. So the first things we want to do, want to load up our libraries. That's a important part. You have to highlight, Control Shift Enter. We're getting Tidyverse. It takes a second to load. We're grabbing Home Depot. It's a big guy, or big gal, either way. So we're going to load up our DF, RDA, which is the 3 data volley files that we parsed before. Yeah. All right. And let's see. We have let's just go DF view. Let's just check it out real quick. All right. So you can see we have a lot of columns. We're not going to go through the columns, but you can see that there's NAs here on the skill and on player name, skill type, evaluation code, etc., etc. Let's say I do not want those NAs. We're going to get to that. But first, let's say that we want to filter for one player, one specific player. Filtering for one player. We're going to say DF, Control Shift M, Enter. And we're going to say filter player name equals, and you can use single quotes or double quotes. I'm going to use single quotes for now. Sometimes double quotes are necessary because there's a single quote inside the string or inside the name that you're trying to grab. It happens sometimes, I don't know why, but just be aware if you get an error for the single quote or double quote, that might be why. It's somewhere in the column. There's likely some quote that's misplaced. Bailey Tanner, I'm going to say because she's got the shortest name for the first names I saw. And we're going to just do view. So now we can see the player name returned Bailey Tanner. All right. We got the skills, the player name, etc., etc. So from here, let's say that I don't want those NAs. Filtering out the NAs of skill, right? So when do the NAs actually happen? Let's check that out. Actually, that's not what I wanted. Pushing up allows me to review previous code I had used when down here in the console portion. So looking at the NAs, when do they happen? Let's see. We got player. It typically happens serve reception, set attack dig, and that dig is the last attack is a point, so that dig is debatable. It is a allows the other team to score a point. We'll say we're not going to name it an error just because there's a whole slew of rabbit holes you can go down with that saying. Um, anyway, yeah, it only happens in between rallies, so we know that the NAs happen in between rallies. So let's say I don't want those. So I'm going to say exclamation point. And what that does is it says I don't want or is not. Is not. So is not NA. And we're going to say we can use skill or player name. And that will return, let's say we said skill. And you can see now all the skills are there. Another way to look at this quickly is using distinct. It's a nice little trick. Now you can see all the skills in 10 rows, 9 rows. If I were to not say that, you can see NA is present. Control Z lets you go back. And so that is filtering out the NAs. That's a nice little trick to have. Let's say I wanted to filter for team and no NA, right? filter for team and no NA. I'm going to say DF filter team equals Washington State University. Hopefully I spelled that right. Check. Yes, I did. All right, good. And so there's two different ways to do this. You can say and or comma. If you use comma, your code stays clean and nice. If you use and, it is kind of janky. I don't know why it does that, but it does. So depending on how you want to do it. I personally use and. I don't usually use enter. I usually do if it's like super long, but it shouldn't have to be super long if you're trying to get what you want quickly in a smart way. Sometimes when you're using Shiny, it gets really long because of the input names you have to use. So we're going to say and is not NA. Well, this time we'll say player name. And we'll just do a view here. And now I should have all the team, excuse me, the team should be Washington State and all the players should not have an NA. If I were to do it this way, leave the NA, you can see the NAs are there, right? So that is a way to filter out the NAs and the team, two of them. If you wanted to go deeper, you could say and skill equals, wow, sir. At that point, you would not need this. That's an interesting note to be aware of. Watch, I'm not gonna have any NAs, and that's because there's NAs on serve, and those same NAs apply to the player name. You can see there's not going to be any. So if I were to go like distinct player name, actually I'm going to do skill. Yeah, you can see there's no NAs. But if I were to say and is not NA's skill, it's going to do the same thing. So it's just extra typing you don't need. That's just kind of like a side note. What's going on? All right. All right. So now let's what if we want to filter for partial, I can spell strings. So we have two teams in this in these three DVWs that I'm using that have the name Washington, right? Two of them at least have Washington, or maybe three. I don't know. I know there's Washington State and University of Washington in these files, so I'm using this as a good example. DF Control Shift M to pipe. We're going to say filter grepl Washington. That's all we're going to put. Team. So now I should only have Washington State and Washington. If I want to check, I could say distinct team. And you can see I have Washington State and Washington. Using distinct is a really good way to check if you have things right, if things make sense, right? So what if we wanted to say filter for partial strings that are not NA. So I would say DF filter grepl. Let's use Washington again. Or actually, let's play a game. Let's see if I could. Yeah, let's just do Washington. Let's not play a game. It'll take too much time. Team. I was gonna say, let's see if we can find one player's name that's duplicated and see if we can like they have different last names. We could do like Sarah Johnson, Sarah Stevens, and you just put Sarah and it brings up both. It's too much effort though. I don't know. For now, and is not actually. You know what? We're gonna say if you want to use grepl the reverse way and say, I do not want Washington, you would do that. So that would take off both Washingtons. And we want to say, and we don't want those NAs either. Is, wow. Is NA player name. So I don't know why you would do this, but it's just to explain. And also one other thing, you can use view in parentheses or not parentheses. Um, it depends on how you're using it. For what I'm showing right now, that doesn't really matter. So now you can see the team is University of Utah. There's no Washingtons and there's no NAs. So if I were to do this, you would see that there would be some NAs returned and a whole bunch of NAs. This has a code TV. I don't know why. Probably a TV timeout. Who knows? Anyway, now you can see the team is not Washington and there are NAs. Um, yeah, so that's kind of a brief overview of filtering. Hopefully it's helpful. I think it's helpful. I mean this grepl is awesome, especially if you got files with the same player but it's all messed up. It's a really great tool. All right.